Hello, good morning. Well, enough with this dramatic look. Hello, 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 hello. Доброе утро, доброе рано. I don't know any other languages. So, hello, how are you? I hope you're okay. I see that so many people joined. So, this is the early morning with Pyjama talk. And you know what is the I have one joke, one starting joke. It's not the best joke in the world, but who cares? So what is the difference between good morning and bad morning? At the good morning, you wake up, you eat healthy breakfast, and you have day full of productive tasks and other stuff. For the bad morning, you have the same, but the opposite direction. And thanks for your attention. And our guest today is Lucas Fernandez da Costa. Hello, Lucas.
Hey, hello, Guinea. How are you today? You good?
I don't know. I'm definitely not an early bird, so I have plenty of coffee and other stuff.
So did you have the good morning or the bad morning?
We'll see. I don't know. So are you an early bird? Can you wake up really early and be productive?
Oh yeah, I actually I wake up at like before 5 every day. So yeah, I'm really a morning person.
Before 5? Come
Yeah,
on.
a few minutes before 5. Yeah, exactly.
It's well, and what is the time for you to go to sleep?
I go to sleep very, very early, like sometimes at like 8, usually at 9. So I can get like 8 hours, 7-ish, you know.
Mhm. I see one problem
Yeah.
here is that when you're an early bird and when you go to pub or any other place with your friends, they drinking a lot and you will be super sleepy because like it's time to go to bed.
That's true. That's true. But the thing is, like, if you're gonna do that, as long as you know the day before, you can wake up a bit later in that day, and then you change your schedule only on that day. You don't have to change it
Mhm,
always, right?
mhm, mhm. Okay. And I think that some people, I don't know, someone don't know about you. So, like, let me show it. Maybe, I think you are only one of the person that I know that have personal website with about like another stuff. Because right now, 2020 is not that popular anymore. No.
Yeah, unfortunately, the web is not that easy anymore. Yeah, but well, I think it's useful, and I like to write. And well, if I'm gonna write, I'm gonna write for my own place. I don't like giving content away for free, and then like platforms like which I won't mention the name, charging other people to read it.
Mhm.
So yeah, I just do it on my own, host it on like GitHub, and yeah, so statically generated. It's quite nice.
Mhm. But with like it's always an option like personal blog with the personal hosting, and you should
Mhm.
care about hosting, care about like many things,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
some social networks when people can share it one in a few clicks and you don't need to do anything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, like my blog still has the share button, so you can share if you wish.
Mhm.
But I like because I want my content to be free, and I don't want to like copyright it. I want everyone to do whatever they want with it, like translate, remix, like they can do whatever they want, in whichever
Mhm.
way they want. Like I prefer to have my own setup. And
Mhm.
well, another thing that I did with my blog is that I like it's fully GDPR compliant. So like I'm not tracking you in any way. Like
Mhm.
I didn't use like Google Analytics. I use a thing called Simple Analytics, which doesn't give me like any unique identifiers. Like it doesn't allow me to identify you specifically. Like I know which pages people are accessing, so I know like which posts are more popular and which aren't, and which browser people use to access and all that kind of stuff, but I cannot fingerprint anyone. I cannot determine anyone's behavior or like demographics or anything like that.
Mhm.
So yeah, like it's a very indie kind of thing that I do today.
Yeah, by the way, you can check out it's here, lucasfcosta.com /about URL. So you are. Let me just show it. I will show how far away is your home country. So like Brazil is here, and you are in United Kingdom in London. It's really long distance.
Yeah.
So
and it's even longer if you go to the south where I'm from. So I'm from the very south of Brazil.
Okay,
So
so
it's even
directions
farther.
from here to directions to here, and it will take you eternity to cross the ocean. So yeah, maybe by car. No.
Yeah, if you do that rowing, maybe,
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, even Google is useless. So, like, what's the story behind moving from Brazil, or it was not that direct? So you moved from Brazil to third country, or what's the story behind this?
So yeah, so I actually moved straight from Brazil to London. This was a funny story because it also has a lot to do with my blog. So I was 21 at the time. I've written a blog post about recursion, which is still in the blog, by the way, if you want to read it. So I wrote that blog post, put it online, got lots of attention on Hawking News and all that kind of stuff. And the CTO of the current company I work at, he sent me an email, and we started chatting, and like we did the whole interviewing thing, and I ended up moving here straight out of Brazil. So I moved in the end of 2017. Straight straight out of Brazil to London.
So like it's one advice for our listeners to post something into blog, and it will the consequences can be unpredictable.
Yeah, like really, the blog has helped me a lot with like so many things. Because like besides writing and getting emails from people and like getting to know others and being able to showcase your work, it also helps me like prepare talks. So whenever I do a talk about a subject I have already blogged about, it's just so much more easy for me to do the talk, because if I have to write about it, I have to have a clear vision of what's the information I want to give to people. And because I have previously written it, I've already put it in a structure that's easily digestible. So if I'm gonna explain something that I've written about before, it means I have already digested the information myself, and it's easier to like present it to other people.
And what is the biggest difference between Brazil and United Kingdom?
Oh,
English
it's a hard
breakfast?
question.
I don't know.
Well, the biggest difference, I don't know. I think like the whole way like you make friends here is very different from how you make friends in Brazil. Like in Brazil, for you to make friends, you literally like you just walk out of your house and you eventually make a friend. Like people are like very friendly. Like they're incredibly friendly, and there's no way you can go to Brazil and not make friends. Like even if you don't try, you'll end up making friends. But here you do have to invest time in like getting to know people, and like things are more like bureaucratic. Let's say. So yeah, it's a bit more difficult to get to know people. I think that's the biggest difference. Well, besides that, I don't think there's too many differences. Well, yeah, public transport here is great.
The weather,
the weather is terrible. But yeah, the weather is terrible. But it's not too bad in London. I guess if you go to the north of England, is way worse.
Yeah, or Scotland, or like Ireland, or something like this.
Yeah, but like for writing code, like having the code kind of rainy weather sometimes is very useful. I quite like it sometimes.
One thing that works for me is that when there is a sun outside, like this, like for this morning for me, it's really you're sitting in chair in your room, and you're like, other guys, they're playing with the ball, and they are playing soccer or whatever, like back in the childhood, and you're sitting here and do boring stuff. So if it's rainy outside, it's better to sit home and do nothing.
That's true. That's true. I agree with that. I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Okay, let's jump into another topic, because for the previous talk, people were complaining that you're discussing boring stuff all the time. So you are, let me open your site again. Where is your site? Okay, so you are an author of the book. You wrote a book. Right?
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I'm in the process of writing it. I'm finalizing it in the next few months. So I write a book about JavaScript testing, which, by the way, I have a few codes that we can give to the audience. I don't know how you want to do that. If you have like any nice questions you would like to ask them about, we can like do a.
So it's this book, right? Testing JavaScript Applications.
Exactly. Testing JavaScript Applications, published by many publications.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of content there. I think it's going to be about like 450, 500 pages. It's going to be
Wow.
a huge piece of work, and yeah, like by now, like all the reviews I got were really positive, and I'm really excited to write a book. I've always wanted to write a book, so yeah.
Is it
Um,
is, is it like is it hard to write a book? I mean, it's
yeah,
a lot of work.
yeah, I would say it's hard, but the hardest part of writing the book is not actually the writing itself, because if you know the content, it's not too hard to like put it into a digestible form, as long as you know, if you practice, you can get there. The hard part is staying committed all the time, because I write every single day. Like the reason why I wake up so early, so that like I can like do some exercise and then like write and like do as much writing as I can,
Hmm.
because if I don't wake up early, it's very hard for me to like have a clear brain to sit down and write. So I wake
Yeah.
up very early, do some exercise, and I write for like 2 hours, 1 hour,
Hmm.
and then I do some work, and then by the end of the day, I can like have my own time and not be too stressed. So yeah, the hard part is staying committed and putting in the time, really, because
Hmm.
yeah, that's the hardest part, I'd say.
Yeah. I remember the story on one of the like Comic Con or any other conferences. There were like a panel discussion with Stephen King, uh,
Hmm.
pretty famous guy, and Robert or George Martin, the author of the Game of Thrones book
All
series.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, Stephen King is a machine, because he wrote, I don't know, thousands of books, a lot of books.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
George Martin wrote a big amount of books, but he cannot complete. Sorry, I didn't read this series, so he cannot complete last book or last two books or whatever for years. And some reporter or some guy asked both authors, "Hey, what is your uh, key secret to be successful?" And this Robert Martin said, "Well, when I have inspiration, I write a couple of pages. But if I don't have inspiration, I obviously don't write." And Stephen King said, "I write 15 pages per day. That's it. I don't
Yeah.
care. Yeah, if I not in the mood and I don't have time, whatever.
Yeah.
I write 15 pages per day. That's it."
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree with that. I'm 100% down with that approach. Basically, I think the exact same. In my life, like if there's something that I think is hard to do, I remove the optionality of doing it. Like like when I wake up like early in the morning, everything's dark outside, my bed is
Yeah.
warm, my room is very
Yeah.
comfortable. I don't feel like going out to exercise, like you never
Mhm.
like wake up, like this early in the morning and you're like, oh yeah, I'm gonna exercise today. No, you wake up and you feel absolutely terrible. But if
Mhm.
you don't have a choice, if you don't have the choice of not like doing it, you just have to do it, right? Because you have removed the choice. And I do the same thing with writing. Like I don't have the choice to choose not to write. Like that's not a choice. It's just something
Mhm.
I do. So because I don't have the choice, I'll always do it. And I don't have a fixed number of pages that I write, but I'll write at least 1 hour, because I know that 40 minutes is about the time it takes for me to get in the zone. So if I get in the zone, if I'm like just fully present with what I'm doing, then well, I'll write a lot. Like I'll manage to be very productive. But if I spend that hour and I'm not in the zone, I know that okay, it's because my brain's not gonna get there today. But I've put in the time. I've given it a chance to get there, and that's what matters to me. So yeah, like just that's the thing that works. And also caffeine. Caffeine is always very helpful.
Are you trying to somehow cheat? I mean, like, hey, brain, you don't want to write, but after the writing, I don't know, eat some cake or do something pleasant.
Yeah, so I think that's actually a prejudicial approach because I believe like this is like my own philosophy that if you give yourself like all
Motivation.
these rewards, you kind of like cheat yourself in long term because if you don't get the reward anymore, you will stop doing things. And when I want to do things, I want to do them like for the sake of like doing them. Like I don't want to be thinking about the reward. I want to enjoy the task I'm currently doing. And one of the things that I feel is that if I get in the zone and if I'm really productive, that's what gives me pleasure. Like if you notice, like people that are watching this, for example, like if you try to do a task and you're fully focused into it and you're like fully present, time will go by really, really fast. Like no matter what the task is, and when you're done, you're gonna feel good because you've done some work. So yeah, I think that's the real reward of doing it is doing it itself. It's not an external reward. Even though I think you should celebrate successes because that will like motivate you. I don't think you should like always put a reward to everything you do.
Yeah, I agree. And the last part of your how to say description from your site is a big part of your life is open source. So, and one
Yeah.
tricky question. Open source is good, but still, some money involved should be involved because people should I don't know. Even if you're doing open source, you should pay the rent or eat something, and it's impossible without either donations or big corporations. I know that I don't know Google, Microsoft, wherever they have sponsorship for open source projects, and it's somehow like can influence. I don't know. For instance, Vue.js sponsored by Alibaba. It's not a secret. So maybe one day they can go to I don't know Evan Yu, author of the Vue.js, and say, hey, Evan, maybe you can add this super important feature, and we are sponsoring you, and it's not that open anymore. What do you think about it?
Yeah, so that's a tricky question. I just finished audio listening to Snowden's book today. By the way, that was a really good read. But I think that the thing with open source that well, even though they can do that, well, it's in the end up to like the maintainers whether they want to like commit to doing what their sponsors want to do. Well, if you live from open source, that's a hard decision. In my case, like I don't live from open source. So like I have my day job, which pays the bills, and that's what I use to maintain myself, and I do open source mostly for fun. And because to me, like in open source, the reason I do it is because I can just sit down and I can do whatever I want, and in whichever way I want, and like I can pick whichever projects I find interesting. I don't have to force myself to work on an open source project that I don't find interesting or do anything that I don't want to do, even though that's you have to do like that kind of stuff in open source. But given how beneficial it is to my career, I think there's an indirect reward you get from it as well. Like the fact that I maintain Chai.js and that I've also been a maintainer of Sinon.js, I think it helps me, for example, do more talks, which therefore results in me meeting more people and like in general having more opportunities. Like the book, for example, like the only reason I'm writing the book is because of the experience I've had with Chai.js and Sinon.js and like the all the interactions I've had with so many people in the testing community. So that's where the book comes from. And if I didn't do open source, well, there would be no book.
Yeah.
You know, and the blog posts which I write for free, you know, if I hadn't written them, if I hadn't wrote like that blog post, I wouldn't be in London today probably. So all these things, like, they have like indirect consequences, and ultimately I genuinely enjoy doing them. So even if I didn't get a reward, like financially or in any other way, it's still like time well spent in terms of fun.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really helpful for me. And when it comes to money, like I usually I don't like involving money in the open source projects I'm in. I know like Chai.js and Sinon.js, like, they take sponsorships, but on Chai.js particularly, I know that their money has almost never been spent. I think like the lead maintainer of the project, Keith, who's an excellent engineer, by the way. Keith, I think he only spent it to like print stickers, like to
Mm-hmm.
print a bunch of stickers so he can like just give them away and stuff. But I don't think we ever use that money for anything else. Like, I myself, I've never like got a cent from Chai.js. I think Sinon.js used to do a hackathon in Berlin once to get the team members together there, but you know, we like, at least I've never got a single cent from open source, like not directly, but it's been like a pleasure to be part of the community. I really enjoy it, and it like makes my life better in in other other ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy to do that. I'm a, you know, I've read enough of like open source philosophy books
Mm-hmm.
to be very passionate about it. So yeah, I guess I fell for the idealistic idea, the idealistic view of open source.
Mm-hmm. And now something completely different. I think RIP headphone users, because like it was a bit too loud. So
Yeah.
Counter-Strike, CS. So what is your favorite skin for a knife in Counter-Strike?
Oh, so I really like the Karambit knives. By the way, I have one tattooed on my leg. Yeah. So I really like the Karambit knives. They look amazing. Yeah, especially the one with the rainbow. That's a really nice one.
Yeah.
Um,
So
but I
if
haven't
you
played CS for a long time. So
same. So if you played or you play CS, write something in chat so we can understand that you are live and not, just listening us sleeping. Okay, so but actually, frankly speaking, we will not talk about Counter-Strike because it's serious.
oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's serious show. So we will talk about complicity, and I will pretend that I'm stupid. Well, I will not pretend, but so what's the problem with the complicity? Because I think that right now every user on the planet have multiple core CPU, 32 gigs of RAM. So it doesn't it doesn't matter how we write programs; they will be fast anyway. No.
Right. So that's an interesting perspective because there's always this idea that oh yeah, let's just throw more hardware at the problem. And usually, like if you compare an engineer's time, to the cost of getting a more powerful machine, depending on what the machine is, of course. Like throwing hardware at the problem, it can be faster, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can be cheaper than just like having better algorithms because you have to pay someone to design those better, more efficient algorithms, right? But at
Mm-hmm.
some point, you will have to do it. And besides that, there's also the fact that, well, it's good to know how to say this is better than this, and have like cold hard facts to prove it, so that you can argue for the
Mm-hmm.
solutions you're proposing. And also, another very well, I'd say pragmatic reason to learn about this is, well, interviewing will require it in some places. I don't know, Evgeny, if you've ever gone through like a time complexity question in a coding interview, for example. But I know that's
Of course.
common in some places. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, so like from a pragmatic perspective, even if you just like if you can throw more hardware at the problem, which is not a very sustainable solution as well, um, even though well, you don't necessarily need to know it for a day-to-day job, given like how powerful people's machines are and everything. It's still useful for interviews and for you to have cold hard facts to argue about why certain approach is better than another. So yeah, that's why I think it's important to know it. Also, a very good quote that I always like to quote from the King's laws of spacecraft design is that engineering is done with numbers, and analysis without numbers is, well, just an opinion. So yeah.
I have one example, one really nice tweet from the. Let me just show you. Where is my Twitter? Twitter. By the way, subscribe on my Twitter. Subscribe on Lucas Twitter. So it's about complicity, about big O notation, and it's super hilarious. So O from n it's linear. O1 it's not even an algorithm anymore. You made it, big performance. O log n is linear but slow because you're logging a value somewhere because it's log. O n log n, and values are logged every iteration, extremely slow. And O n exclamation mark, which is, it's just a linear. You're just shouting, it's linear. Yeah. And O. So yeah. So what about this notation? Maybe we can show the code or something like this. So
absolutely. So let me just find it here.
Yeah. So
is it this step? Yep. So basically, what I will do is I'll like go through the blog post and just explain it in more detail, and perhaps someone will have nice questions or nice things to say about that. But well,
if you have
let's start
questions.
with what is big O notation, right? Sorry,
Yeah.
go on, Evgeny. What did you say?
Yeah. If you have any questions, just spam them in chats, and we will reply.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, we've talked a lot about big O notation, and I know most people listening will kind of like have an idea of what that is, but I think it's good to explain exactly what big O notation is. So, basically, big O notation is just a way of describing how well algorithms scale given an input. Okay, like it's not necessarily like a performance measure or anything like that. It's just to measure how algorithms scale, and it depends on an input, right? So if you have, for example, a find function which just goes through an array, right, and tries to find an item, well, for you to determine like its complexity, you need to look at always the worst case possible. So given an input, well, what's the worst case possible that like this function will have to go through the items to find it, right?
Let me
if you're finding,
yeah, we can pretend that it's
what do you think
yeah, so it's interview for a job.
okay.
And I will pretend that I am a JavaScript developer. Well, looks like I will not pretend. Looks like here we should iterate because we have 4 and like from 0 to array length. So looks like we should iterate over whole array. So it means that we will go through, for instance, if there would be 10 items in array, we will iterate 10 times.
Yeah, exactly. And the important thing here is not exactly just the 10. The important thing is what would the result be depending on the input, right? So if you have 10 items, you get 10 back. If you have 20 items, you get 20 back, right? So that's the important thing. It's not the constant, but instead how it scales given the input. So this is linear because it scales linearly as input grows, right? So that's why I say its complexity is linear, right? So as you give it an n sized input, well, you have like an n complexity because you need n iterations, right?
In the worst case, right?
In the worst case, always. Like now, the thing is that heuristics are a whole different beast. If you like, you can use like statistical techniques and know that, well, usually the arrays I get are like in this sequence, like and then you can use that to your advantage, and you can have an algorithm that most of the time, is going to be faster. But like heuristics is a whole different beast, and that's not what we'll talk about here. You know, so yeah, so it depends on the size of the input, and you always want the worst possible case. Even if you have an array and well the items in the first place, well that's the best possible scenario, but you want to account for the worst possible scenario, right? The maximum number of iterations that function will do. And again, talking about the importance of how it scales with input, basically I have an example down here, which I think it would be useful for us to go through, which is that it doesn't really matter like if you're iterating through the array once or twice. What matters is that the complexity is growing linearly, right? So if you have 100 items, you have to do 100 operations, right? If you have 500 items in your array, you have to do 500, right? Now, let's say you, for some reason, like whatever it is, you're iterating twice, right? You're going through the array twice. If you have 100 items, you do 200 operations. If you have 500 items, you have 1,000 operations. So as you multiply the size of the input, the size of the number of operations you need, it grows according to how much the input grows. So here I multiply this by 5, like the n by 5, the input by 5. And the output is also multiplied by 5. The number of operations I need is also multiplied by 5. So it doesn't really matter if you're dealing with 2n or n. What you're concerned with is how it scales, right? Not with the exact number of operations you need. That's why on Beagle, you always drop constants. So if you have n, 2n, or let's say, n plus 1, n plus 2, well, that doesn't really matter because it's still linear, right? So because if you imagine a function, when you multiply it by a constant, well, it only influences its growth rate by a constant amount. So a linear function is still function, and so on. A quadratic function is still quadratic. So that's very important when dealing with Beagle. So when you ask for the complexity of an algorithm in an interview, make sure you drop the constants, right? You're concerned with how an algorithm scales given a certain input. That's what we're concerned with, right? Did you get all that, Evgeny? Was that good?
Yeah. So just by example, dropping constants. So for instance, if in this case we have some predefined array, and we should, I don't know, find sequence, for instance. When we have a given array for 100 items and some array of 5 items, and it means that we can drop this like constant array from complicity metrics.
Yeah, a better case I'd say is like if you have let's imagine for example a good one. Many people in JavaScript, they do this. So you have like multiple, like you have a filter, then you do a map, and then you do I don't know, like a reduce, for example. Okay. So in JavaScript, that's a very common thing. You just chain those operations which go through an array. So let's say you have filter followed by a map. Okay, some people, they will use that as an excuse, just write a reduce. Okay, because they will say, oh, but with the reduce, I'm only going through the array once, and I'm filtering and mapping at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. So that's 2n complexity. Now, if you're doing a map and then a filter, well, that's still n complexity. It's still linear. Even though you're going through it twice, it scales linearly as the input grows. So in that case, I would say that time complexity is not a good reason to choose a less readable algorithm like reduce. I'd say there's other cases where it's very useful to use reduce, and I myself, I use reduce all the time. I think it's marvelous. I use reduce all the time. It's my favorite JavaScript function. But it's usually not because of time complexity, because the time complexity of having a map followed by a filter will be the same as having a single reduce. It's both are linear. One is n and one is 2n. but you drop the constants, so both are still like n.
Maybe we can just, yeah, it's usually a big question, not a big, but a really common question. And let me just show something like this. So if we have JavaScript function, for instance, we have some array, and we will do on this array, we will just observe the codes like filter, okay, filter, map, and then
Yeah, I will do the map first just to make sure that the array that goes into filter is the same size. Yeah. So what I'm comparing here is array.map.filter on the first line.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, and on the second one, just array.reduce. Array.map.filter. Yeah. Yeah, and then the other example would be array.reduce. Because, well, when you're reducing, right, basically what you can do is you can map and filter at the same time, because on your accumulator, on the reducer function, you can like concatenate to the accumulator only what you need. So I can probably share my terminal if you'd like, and I can write an example here. So let's try this. How do I share my screen?
Because usually it's not a problem to understand complicity if you have for loop or while loop or something like this, but with some kind of like lambdas or this filter map array and other stuff, sometimes it's really tricky to understand what is the complicity.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to find here the share thing.
Yeah, and I will.
So you can probably see it now.
Add to stream. Yes.
Yeah.
Maybe if you increase font size.
Yep, let's increase the font size. Absolutely. So let's say you have an array, right, with like a couple of items. Let's just write the sequence here. So now let's do two things. Let's do array.map, and that will be I minus 1, or let's do I plus 1, whatever. Okay, so we have this, and we have filter. And then we're going to filter, let's say the rest of the division by 2 is 0. So let's do it like this, okay? So let's compare this, okay, in which you're going to add 1 to all numbers, and then you're only going to get the even ones, with, for example, an array dot reduce, in which you're going to have a function which takes an accumulator, an item, and then you take it here, you have an array here. So in this reduce function here, what can you do? Basically, you can do the item plus 1. So you're doing the map here. So let's call this new value. And then you can have here return a ternary with which will, if y rest division by 2 0. If that happens, right, we want to keep it in the array. So we're going to do ACC, concat, and new value. Otherwise, we're going to do ACC because we don't want to put that value in the new array. Okay, so we're mapping and filtering in a single reduce. So this will go to the array once, and this will go to the array twice. But what do you think is more readable?
Of course, first one.
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to time complexity, you know, they're going to be both linear. So in that case, you know, going for the less readable solution, if you're going for it for a lot of reasons, well, then that's fine. But if you're going for it just because, you know, you think it's more efficient to go to the array once, well, indeed, you have you need less operations. But as your input grows, the number of operations you will need will grow in the same rate. So what you're interested in is the rate of growth, right? Of how you get these outputs. So both of these grow linearly with input, and that's what matters.
So
cool.
Okay, yeah, it's of course it's really nice, but one thing to understand linear complexity is kind of it's easier, of course. But if we will talk about, and I will share you the really popular question on Stack Overflow. So, and this person asks, let me increase the font. Okay, so like, yeah, for this, it's really easier to understand that this one is linear. Yeah, it's not that hard. But, and again, if we have nested loop, time would be in square. So yeah, and so on. But what is the logarithmical complicity? It's not that easy to understand.
Yeah, so that like you're breaking in half the on the, I like to think of like you're breaking in half on each iteration the number of spaces you need to go through. So that's how I would think about it. So I think that's the best way to visualize it. And I think that an even better way to visualize it is if you go online and you search for the graphs of complexities and you see the functions plotted on the graph. That's probably the best way to understand the difference between each, like the growth rate difference between all these functions. If you scroll down, sorry. If you go to the, I think the first one is probably good. Yeah, there you go. This is the one that I have on my blog post. And I think that's a good way of illustrating like the difference in how they grow. And like, that's a good way to think about the constant thing I mentioned, in which, well, if you multiply a function by a certain constant, you still have the same like kind of like shape, but you just like move it by a constant amount. So I would say that if you want to like visualize and like kind of like have an idea of how those compare, probably a graph, at least for me, is what gives me a better notion of it, like of the actual practical difference between them. And that's what I think I would recommend. Like one of the things that was very useful for me when I was in college were my classes about databases. So in those classes, basically, what my professor would do is he would like give us a certain query, and he would tell like, this is what happened. You know, if you're doing binary search, well, this is what's happening, right? Every time you pick one side of the tree. So that would help me visualize what the algorithm was doing, and then he would like explain like, this is the complexity of this query because the algorithm. Now, if you put an index here, let's say like a hash table, that's like a linear complexity because you're just gonna get an ID, you're gonna go straight to a position in memory, and you're gonna find that item. You're not gonna know where there is. So for me, the thing that helped me the most understand like time complexity is studying databases and how they work. And there's an excellent book for that, which is by I think it's two people. I think that's El Masri and Navate. I'm probably like I'm saying like the name's completely wrong, but it's an amazing book. It's called The Fundamentals of Database Systems, and that's really, really, really helpful. Like it's been invaluable for most of my work. You know, like dealing with data and knowing how databases find things. You know, and knowing the complexities of that. Like that's very useful. And you know, back to the thing you said when we started chatting, you know, about the utility.
Sorry.
Yeah, I have a different edition. The cover of the one I have is a different one, but yeah, it's probably Pearson. Yeah.
So yeah, it's
this book is absolutely excellent. Yeah.
So
yeah, it's a huge book. Like it's a brick. Yeah, I don't think I have it here. I think I leave it in the office because it's very useful. You know, as you're working. Now we're not going in the office because of coronavirus, but well, anyway, it's a brilliant book. And you know, back to the thing that you said in the beginning of chat about, oh, it's not, is it important to know it? Well, if you're dealing with databases, for example, it may be useful for you to compare, like to understand what it's doing and know how efficient it will be to find that data. So I would say that's another practical implication.
Something wrong with the connection. Yeah, right now it looks is okay. So,
Oh, sorry. Back?
so yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I will ask the question. We will see what would be with the connection. So, like, what is your way to judge from the first look how complex? What is the complicity of the function? So, like, you are looking at the cycles or loops, I mean, or whatever. How to judge it quickly, or you just read code one line by line,
Yeah.
then you can understand.
Yeah, for you to have an accurate depiction of a function's complexity, you do need to read it carefully and understand what it's doing and judge its complexity. However, there's a few common ways which are like go-to ways of thinking which can help you like improve the complexity of your functions, especially like if you're doing like a job interview, let's say. Like if you're reading, by the way, one of the books that's very useful is Cracking the Code interview. So basically on Cracking the Code interview, like you notice that there's a pattern in many questions, which is like, oh, how do you solve this thing in the most efficient way? And it's not usually, but a go-to thing that you should think is sorting and indexing. Because, well, for you to index an array, for example, well, if you index that array, then for you to find an item within that array, well, you just need to go to the index you've built, and you've built that index in n time, right? So you end up having linear complexity. And that's something I do all the time. So indexing arrays is something that I do frequently, not only because it improves time complexity, because as you've said, well, we have powerful machines these days, so it's not really only that, but it just makes easier dealing with things when you have maps than when you have arrays. So that's something that's very, very useful that I do all the time. And with a reduce, you can do it very easily. Like if I can share my screen again and show you how to do how to index an array in very idiomatic JavaScript very, very quickly. So back to your item. Let's say you wanted to index this array. Like let's say you had a bunch of objects here. Let me do this here in Vim. Oh God, I did the wrong shortcut. So let's do this. Yep. And now let's say you have an array which has like an ID. Let's record this as well. So ID is this, and then you have a name which is blah. Okay, so let's imagine you have this. Okay, so should I have recorded that macro?
We can just
Can you sing in the meantime? So, to entertain the audience. But yeah, imagine you have like an array. Like let's use fewer items here. This should be good enough. Should have done this since the beginning. Okay, so if you have this array and you want to index it, well, if you can use a reduce, you can just do this. So you have an array. You can have an object here. And basically all that you need to do is, well, you get your ACC, which is an object. So you ACC. So you're going to use the spread operator here to get all the items that are in a scene to a new object, to avoid mutation. Then you're going to use item dot the attribute you want to index by. So in this case, I'm going to index by ID. And then I'm going to put the item there. And there you go. You've just indexed this array by its ID. And then whenever you find an item, you don't need to do array.find. You can just do array item.id. And then you get everything you need. And this is all one. This is this is constant time. And this here takes you n time because you just go through it once. So instead of having like a nested loop, if you want to find duplicates, for example, you can index an array and like store the count for each kind of item. So that's linear complexity. So that's a simple way of reducing complexity, very useful for interviews. if you want to find duplicates in an array that's sorted, for example, as well, well, then it becomes way easier because you just have to go through it once because it's sorted.
Wow, it's really nice. And one question: what do you think? So complicity and all this stuff. Is it for everyone, or for instance, if I don't know, writing Angular forms, whatever, I don't need it because like front end will be not that we don't care that much about complicity and efficiency and other stuff because we don't have thousands of items in array anyways.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think that makes sense, and I'd say that in extreme cases, it can make a difference. Like in extreme cases, like if you're dealing with a lot of data and you have a very, very, very inefficient algorithm, the worst algorithm you can design, well, then yes. But also, like if you're developing like a framework or anything more complex, which is like the very foundation, the very foundation for web application, well, then in that case, well, you're concerned with making your framework as quick as possible because also, like performance is a way of accessibility.
Yeah.
And you want it to run well, like on everyone's machine. So I'd say, yeah, maybe you don't think about it all the time when you're writing code. I definitely don't, and I'm not gonna say here that oh, it's super useful. I think about it all the time, but like it's one of those things where like if you know it, you're gonna see it in the world. But if you don't know, you're just like you're gonna just not notice that piece of complexity. If you know data structures, you can you can go to those data structures when you see a problem that kind of like fits that way of thinking, and you don't need to reinvent the data structure yourself because you know how it works. So I think time complexity is one of those things that if you know it, well, you start like seeing it and applying it in cases where it will be useful for you. It's like one more tool in your toolbox, let's say.
Yeah, I would say that understanding complicity is like ability to run. Of course, you will not run marathon every day, but still, sometimes when you have to run, it's a nice skill to have. Something like this.
Absolutely. That's a very good analogy. 100%, 100% good analogy. Yeah.
Okay, and
Totally agree.
we spent a lot of time on this, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you have any suggestions, what we should, and I hope this is not the last time when we have computer science with Lucas. And if you have ideas, what we should, what we should talk next time, just post comment, and we will jump into next section. It's meme review. Sorry, it's not the meme review, but let's. It's a morning anyway, so let's I don't know have some fun. I have 5 or 6 like IT tech memes for you, and you have numbers from 0 to 10 to judge, and how funny they are. So I have 10
Okay.
5 pictures. Let me share my screen. And you should give me the number. And you guys in chat, you can post your score. So first meme is, can you guys please recommend books that made you cry? And recommendation is Data Structures and Algorithms in Java, second edition.
I like the. Okay, so I have to rate it from 0 to 10?
Yeah. 10 is
Okay.
like, it's super funny. It's the funniest joke in the universe.
Okay, I think this is very creative. I would give it a 7. Made me smile. Yeah, 7 is good, I think.
Really generous. Again, 7. Next is the 3 stages of career development. First, I can't wait until I'm important enough to be included in the meeting. Second stage is I feel so important being in these meetings. And the third stage, I will do anything legal and several illegal things to avoid these meetings.
Okay,
by the way,
that's a good one.
On which stage are you?
Well, I am I don't like to say I'm in the third because it's not that I like to avoid meetings. I like to avoid meetings that are necessary. I think
Yeah.
meetings are great in some cases. There are many cases where meetings are really, really useful.
Mhm.
But there are some meetings that they could be emails, especially because I'm very fond of writing. I think that well-written documents, they can
Mhm.
save people like a lot of time, not
Mhm.
only because you can avoid certain kinds of meetings, not all kinds of meetings with them, but also because they make the writer think about what they want to do and reevaluate their hypothesis. So I would say like I have a more pragmatic approach to meetings. Not that I like to avoid meetings. I like to avoid meetings that are not useful. Um,
Okay. And
so yeah,
what?
I think, but I think it's a funny one because I think everyone at some point goes through these and has this kinds of
Yeah.
feelings.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would say eight. Eight is a
Wow.
good one.
So like we're really close to the funniest joke in the universe. Okay,
No,
next
no, okay.
one.
So yeah. If 10 is like the funniest joke, yeah, maybe this is
Uh-huh.
seven. Let's
Okay.
give it a seven.
Okay, next one is it's about games. Link. You've got to try these power up mushrooms. It's not the end joke. The next slide would be.
Mhm.
Seriously, eat one, realize and the link become a hyperlink and
Uh, yeah,
uh,
I mean, it's not so unexpected.
mhm.
I'll give it a 5.5.
Okay. Okay. Next one. If a binary tree wore pants, would he wear them like this or like this?
Oh, okay. This is a good one. I think 7.5 is a good one.
And what is your choice? Is it
If
left or right?
um, well, I would say that it's the left one because it's a recursive, a naturally recursive data structure. So you need multiple pens for each node because each node is kind of like has its own kind of tree, right? So yeah, I'd say the one on the left.
Yeah. And one question why binary tree is here, so I don't get it, but yeah. And next one. So 7.5. Okay. Next one. Developers during hackathon. We built an entire application in just 3 days. Developers after hackathon. Adding that icon is going to take 3 weeks. And it's
Well, I
so
think that's
true.
that's a reality. Yeah, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
not like that's not funny, but it's a very good tweet. Because I think that the main difference is that in a hackathon, you're not like one that software is not going to survive for long. So
Yeah.
writing tests hugely decreases in value because the value of tests increases the more time you have to keep your application around for.
Mhm.
And after the hackathon, you have a larger team, you have larger business objectives, and you have to coordinate ways of working with multiple different people in different environments. So
Mhm.
one thing is programming, which is what you do when you're kind of alone, and another thing is software engineering, which is what you do when you're in a team. And those
Mhm.
things are very, very different. And I think in the first case you're programming, and in the second case you're doing software engineering. And I think that's the difference. But not funny, but
Not funny, but true.
but true. But a very good tweet. I think this is one of the truest tweets on this that we've seen.
I would say
So
it's
yeah,
like something.
I would say probably a three in like scale of how fun it is, but
Mhm.
an 8.5 in scale of how true it is.
Mhm. Maybe it's like something like three story points and one human month in software development. Okay, and last one. I think it should be last one. And so prepare your headphones because it can be really loud. I didn't test it. Ah, not. The next one would be really loud. So the best thing about being a dev, you can work from anywhere, anytime. The worst thing about being a dev, you can work from anywhere, anytime. So again, it's not that funny, but it's so true.
Absolutely, absolutely true, man. Yeah, like I'm cursed with this because I bring my MacBook with me wherever I
Mhm.
go, and I work. a lot on all the different things. Like I don't know if I would even call it work because sometimes it's open source, sometimes it's writing a blog post. I mean, it is kind of working, but I'm still having fun. And man, I've worked in so many airport lobbies. Like I am probably like the greatest code writer in airport lobbies there is. Like man, it's like I remember the last time I was in San Francisco. I was flying to London from San Francisco. Man, I had to spend like so much time in the airport, like so much time, and I was just writing code, in the airport. And then, when I was flying back from London to Brazil, at the time I was still living in Brazil, I was writing lots of code in Heathrow, and then like in Russia, in Sheremetyevo last time. I don't know if I pronounced it correctly. You probably know better than me, but now Joao and I were like discussing, Tokyo and like the scheduler, not the place, and yeah, like man, I've written code in many different airports.
Okay,
Yeah, it is
test for you.
fun.
Test for a workaholic. Can you imagine yourself being on vacation and leave your laptop at home?
No, leaving my notebook at home is not an option. Like people like say they feel naked without their phone. I feel kind of naked without my MacBook. Like I might take it with me and not do real work, like not answer to emails or not write blog posts or anything like that. But I will at least check what's happening, open Hacker News, and just that kind of stuff. Like I cannot fully disconnect. I can disconnect from doing work, but I cannot disconnect from like checking like Hacker News and just giving the quick look on the email and that kind of thing. And what if I have like a brilliant idea? I need a place to write the code for it. You never know when brilliant ideas will come. So yeah, I can definitely not do work, but not taking my MacBook with me. Yeah, I don't think it's an option.
Okay, so if it is a test, you failed.
Yeah, I probably have failed.
Okay, and so again, it's not a joke. It's sad. For like if we have a sadness scale from 0 to 10.
A sadness scale. I don't think this is sad because if you love your job, this is not really sad. I'd say it's sad if it like stops you doing other things in your life. And well, if it does, you probably need to change, how you approach things. But I wouldn't say it's sad. I'd say in a reality scale, like for this time, for example, it's very good, right? Being able to work from home amidst coronavirus, it's a bless. But yeah, I'd say like in the scale of how real it is. Yeah, like I think it's very real. Like it's 100% real. So
okay,
yeah, 100% real. 10 in solitude of reality. Yeah, congratulations, Catalan. You've made it.
Yeah, and the last one. So I'm not sure that it would be not really loud or it can be really loud. So prepare your headphones. I don't know what would be. So the parsers, how parsers work.
Oh God, that's an amazing gift, man. Amazing cinematography.
And by the way, I just realized that I shared my tab without music. So actually, I enjoy it in silence. So let me just, because music is really adding more to this. Yeah, it was a bit stupid from my side. Okay, share Chrome tab, share this one, and share audio. Share. Okay, let's enjoy it together. We can dance together.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a very good one. Very good one.
Yeah. What do you think? What is the score for this?
Well, in like if if I were in the Oscar Academy, probably, I give you an Oscar. In terms of how funny it is, well, not so much. I'd say a 7 because all the production deserves it.
Okay.
I'm sorry,
Well,
I'm giving so many 7s, but I'm a standard guy.
yeah, I think it was funny. From my perspective, it's not the funniest joke in the universe, but kind of funny. Okay, yeah, that's it for the meme review. If you get this reference, post something in the chat, but maybe I don't know. So it's already 1 hour of us. So it's for morning. It's a lot. So thank you very much for staying for so long period. I hope you like it, and I hope
Thank you.
yeah, and next time, maybe we can discuss something not only Counter-Strike, but maybe Dota. Have you played Dota?
Absolutely. I played a lot of Dota. In my early days of school, like me and my friends on Fridays, there were 2 games we played on the house. Dota, the one that was made on top of Warcraft 3, and Counter-Strike 1.6. That was like the best thing ever. And I always speak Techie because Techies, the one that planted the bombs. That was the funniest character ever to play. That was the best. After they released Tusker, that was quite nice as well. But since then, I haven't played much Dota. Yeah.
But you can install first Dota on your MacBook and play in airport or whatever.
That's not a bad idea. That's not a bad idea indeed. Yeah, maybe I'll do that. Who knows?
Okay,
yeah.
That's time to say goodbye. Thanks, Lucas.
Yeah. Can I just give one gift for your viewers? So I got a discount code for Testing JavaScript Applications, my book, which is available at Manning's website. So if you go there and use the code PodPyjama20, that's all together PodPyjama20, Pyjama with a Y, you will get 40% discount, okay, for like all formats on the book.
Like this,
so
right?
If you go there,
pod underscore Pyjama.
No, it's without the underscore, pod Pyjama, and there's a 20 in the end. Let me write it down to you. Pod Pyjama 20, like this. That will get you 40% discount on all formats. So if you just go to Manning's website and search for Testing JavaScript Applications, use that code down here. Not very good at doing marketing, apparently. Yeah, 40% discount. And I also got 3 books. So the people that tweet at me at the Wizard Lucas with the best memes, since we've talked about memes, if you got a good meme, tweet at me. I got a few free ebook codes that I'll give away for the people with the best memes. So just tweet at the Wizard Lucas your tech memes, and I'll DM you a code if I think your meme is good.
Yeah. So subscribe, share, tweet, and thanks, Lucas, for this 1 hour. It was definitely a good morning for me. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, man. It was an amazing morning for me too, and it's always always a pleasure speaking to you, man. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. Thanks for everyone who watching this or would be watching this in the future. And have a great day. And bye-bye.
Bye.
We should have outro.